Well, hello everybody. Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan, Living Life with Purity. And today I want to talk about a situation we have going on with manly leadership in our world right now. My last segment I talked about dad brain versus internet brain and how this is applying in our world today. This last week we had the Boy Scouts of America have now changed their name to Scouting America, dropping the boy designation out of the naming. And part of this is in response to the pedophilia and accusations and actual atrocities that had happened in that organization over the years. Much similarly like what they want to accuse Catholics, priests, and other lay people in the church of using young boys and girls at times for their own devices. This is a sickness that goes across all levels of our society. It's inherent in our school systems. The only thing right now is that whereas in the past you'd always looked at Mr. Evans as having been the problem with the kids, it's now Miss Kennedy is now the problem, because what is happening is the women, and I really can't call them women because I don't think they've developed into women yet, because I think they're still sort of immature and adolescent in their brain and thinking. They've been given this power over this group of children, but they really don't have the experience and the doctrinal sort of development that has helped them determine who they are. And so they're still reaching for things, they're still finding things. And what they're doing a lot of times in the school system right now with the female teachers preying on the male students and possibly the females is they're acting out fetishes that they see on internet porn, and they're trying to manifest this in their own lives and thinking, this is how I take power. And they're acting out these fantasy roles, and young boys are being used for this probably quite willingly. As I remember when I was 16 years old, any invitation was a yes, RSVP. I didn't get any invitations, but I had a natural RSVP, and I think every boy did at that time, and probably still does today. So the girls, probably even more so, the girls are now very, very aggressive sexually. They're the ones that typically are the ones that are instigating things nowadays, which is a complete role reversal. And I'll get into that in a future segment here when I talk about the power of the pill and what that has done to women and the women's movement. The power of the pill and then the power of the dress. What is the power of the pill gave them their freedom, but the power of the dress has taken it all away because they let men wear it. And now men are dominating women. So what women fought for all these years has now been given away with the transgender movement. So now women are not women anymore. They're not as good as the men being women. How did we get there? Well, let's go back to the Boy Scouts and scouting. Now, for the Boy Scouts to capitulate and give up their name of Boy Scouts in the face of failing revenues and enrollments in their organization, probably has less to do with the message that they're sending than the people that they have running the program. If you want to fix scouting, what you got to do is you got to get rid of the creeps. Everyone has a quietness about them when we talk about that, but there's creepy people are not only in our organizations, they're in our schools, they're in our churches. We've known about this. We haven't called them out. We've always been very quiet about these things, whether it be the Catholic Church or the Lutheran Church or any other church out there. We have an organized group of people coming together. It could be an athletic club. We've seen this in Little League Baseball. We've seen this in college sports. We've seen it all across the platforms. Mental illness is mental illness. We have to quit giving it a pass. We have to redirect these people take them out of class, if you will, try to fix them with counseling. And if they don't respond on that, they have to be excluded from that particular framework. This is all there is to it. It's going to come down to it with our scout leaders, our teachers, our custodians, and things like anyone who's around these people, our priests, our bishops. Got a lot of problem there. In when we want to call about systemic culturalism, it's systemic. This is things that have been taught. These are things that have been allowed, and these are things that haven't been stood up against. Archbishop Fulton Sheen was talking about this clear back in 1947. Our Lady of America railed against it in her claims against the softness of the priests and the problems with their worldliness in 56. Have things changed that much? Well, they've changed, but I think they've gotten different. So the appeals to the worldliness has changed a little bit. And, with new things coming along, there's always a new attractiveness to something. We have to fix these things. This is what purity is. Purity is not standing by while these things go along and say, well, maybe we've got it wrong, and then give it a pass, and then 3 more Sundays go by and nothing happens. And then a year of Sundays go by and nothing happens. And then it just becomes buried history and nobody does anything until the serpent raises its head a couple years later on, and then somebody really gets hurt because he didn't take care of the problem the first time. My dad and others have always told me, when there's a problem that comes along or you have something that needs to be fixed or serviced, if you don't take the time to fix it right the first time, when are you going to find time to fix it when it breaks again? So you may as well take the time, fix it right the first time, go through the pain, go through the agony, go through the steps. Don't just kick it down the road and hopefully it'll still work until sometime when it finally fails, when there's an emergency situation or something bad is going on. We can't keep doing this. This is not purity. This is not what Our Lady is calling for. So this is upon all of us to stand up at this time to these things and say no. Now, what the Boy Scouts and now Scouting America is going to do is they're going to group together young girls and young boys into the same grouping and thinking they're going to be getting equity and equality and all like that. No, you're going to be creating confusion. These are growing minds. These are growing young girls and young boys. Okay, these are not kids that are still up for election to decide which gender that they want to choose. They can't choose their gender. That's been assigned by God. They get the opportunity to choose how they behave, and then that takes on a whole other realm of costs and equations that go with that. But when you've got young developing girls with young developing boys, there's a reason why naturally young boys group together up until the age of puberty and even afterward while they're going through their awkward phases. Same thing with girls. They'll group date together as, their gender group. This is how they form. This is how they become girls. This is how they become young women. And this is how they progress through life. Historically, it's worked. Now they want to group everything together. And what we're going to be having is you're going to be having these allegedly thoughtful talks with the young boys and young girls. And when we talk with these young boys about things that are going on with their bodies and their lives and their emotions, they're not going to be free to talk in front of the girls that they might find attractive or they find scary because they're several inches taller at that point in their life. There's a number of things that go on with the id development at that point and the ego development that's going on. Same thing with the young girls. They don't want to be talking about what's going on with their, bodies at that time in front of the boys because they're scared, they're embarrassed, they don't know how to deal with these things. And to be talking about tampons and pills in front of the boys, gets to be, I think, a little bit scary for them and intimidating. Same thing with the boys. To talk about what's going on with their bodies and their feelings and how they can't, hold back certain physical actions that happen because of a stimulus that they might feel and maybe a confused feeling for a young boy, but it's still natural. Now I can get natural as hell. So let's not try to, call the rock a turtle when it's not. Let's make sure we have our goals straight here. You got to work on growing good boys and good girls in the way that God designed. This is the purity, not mixing things up like a big snow globe. Have you ever had a snow globe and shook it all up? Two things happen when you shake up a snow globe. The snow goes all around and flies all around the sphere and does its thing. But at the same time, the figures inside the snow globe stay steady. They don't move. They stay consistent. So in this day and age, you can't be the little snowflakes and things like that are floating around, can be maneuvered by any little stimulation that comes along and shakes up the arena. You have to figure you're one of those stable figures inside the snow globe. This is when you know who you are. So work on that. Make sure that you have your definite point in this set of debates that we're having. And I don't even know if they're debates. These are just more authoritarian and totalitarian shutdowns that are happening. Now, you got to make sure that you're developing the girls and the boys. And make sure that they know that they feel comfortable in those areas to talk about that. What we need to do to fix scouting is to get rid of the creeps, like I said before. Get rid of the creeps, get good men and women in there to raise and help these children, and not necessarily their teachers, because it's a whole different game that goes on there. You need people with experience, people with wisdom. Wisdom is the things that we learn in life that are consistent, that don't change. They're truths. We need people that know these things to be leading our children and bringing them up. Just like, I had good coaches when I was growing up, and I had great coaches. There was a difference between the two. My great coaches were wise, and they did not try to work on my athletic or baseball skills so much as my purpose for being a ball player. And there was a difference there. And when I had that kind of care and reasoning, my game jumped. It jumped in levels when I realized that it wasn't about my technique, but it was about my interior drive and what is moving me and who I was. Huge game changer, literally and figuratively. Same thing needs to go on with our young children right now. We need wise people taking care of this. And so as parents and leaders in our communities, we need to make sure that we're not just handing the ball off to the next person up, because we don't know what's going on with this person. We really don't know if we haven't been there all their life. So we have to be careful about these things. Same thing with our leaders in our churches, whether it be the Catholic Church, a Lutheran Church, or a non-denominational. Make sure you know who's leading the charge on these things, because they might be going into a blank space that they have no business going into. And they might be going into spaces and places that they have no business putting their hands or their attention to. So let's get forceful about these things. Let's make sure that we are practicing purity and we're paying attention to these things. Now, in other news events and things like that, we have an administration right now that is taking active steps to cripple Israel right now. A longtime ally and a longtime necessary component of our Christian value system is trying to be eliminated. And we have to question why these things are happening. This, I think, should be a natural response to the atrocities that happened, not just on October 7th, but going back for many, many years. This is not a new thing. This has just been amped up with the advents of and the speed of technology and the efficiency of weapons and so many people making these things. They can make these things in an automotive garage, and that's what they've been doing, making these rockets. Not a difficult thing to do. A lot of kids that do rocket studies here in this country at 7th and 8th grade, they're putting out science projects that are very similar to what these folks are doing over in Palestine or the Gaza area and trying to throw at the Israelis. They're cheap, they're scary, and They're effective just by their nature. So we have to watch out for all these things that are going on. Be mindful of it. There's a wave that's coming, a wave of change that you have to be ready for. All these things have been happening are just, practice rounds. They're proof of concept. They know that they can move young women most easily. Young women who are doing studies in soft sciences and not in the hard sciences. And so we have to be very, very careful about this group of people, and especially if they're young men taking these courses, because they're just as easily moved around. Just like the bull with the nose ring I talked about in the last segment. The nose ring is there to be able to control the animal, lead the animal, and the same thing's going on. Anyone with a nose ring, I would safely say, is asking to be led around and directed. They're not people that I would trust with any sort of decision making, because I think they've made a poor decision in that regard right there. Same thing with blue hair, green hair. These are all signs. They're not style points. These are all signs. Don't endorse this stuff. Call it out what it is, and treat it like a yield sign or a warning light at an intersection. Be careful. They're telling you who they are. Believe them. So, a lot of things out there to put out, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the whole Boy Scout thing. I think it's a terrible move. It's going to, I think, create more problem, and I think it's going to give us more creeped on kids than what they have now. I don't think they're doing anything to make the situation better, because they haven't addressed the problem. They've only addressed the politics and the image. So without getting into the depth of it, we've got the same thing going in our churches, and so we need to fix this, and we need to be watching out for it. So we'll be talking more about that, but I wanted to make a short segment here to have something to think about a little bit over the weekend before the next news cycle comes out next week and we get hit with even more hilarious lies. I think the record right now, Biden set the other day, even by CNN's total, is 15 lies in 17 minutes. That's pretty incredible. So we'll digest some of that then too as to what's going on. So anyway, have a great weekend. I love you, and I'll be back.